Hello, folks. I It's funny. Like, I got a recent video of mine got 107 views, which is like pretty unheard of for me. It was like about title was it was about like the founder of Freemasonry, or one of the founders of like modern Freemasonry, James Anderson. But anyway. And then I got like one video that was about Jimmy Dore, got like 76 views, I think. But like most of my views were getting like, or most of my videos were getting like 10, 12 views, sometimes like 18 views. I don't know, thereabouts. Sometimes 8 views. But anyway, my last 2 videos I did the other day, like a couple days ago, one I did got 0 views so far, and the other got 4. So I don't know if that's gonna like signify a trend. I mean, it certainly implies that like I by no means can assume that anybody will watch this. But so I might stop like making videos, because I mean, I understand like people don't have a lot of time and everything, but to watch it and whatever, but also I don't have time to like make videos that are going to have 0 views. But anyway, I already had this idea for this video in my head, so I figure I at least just make this one. Just to talk more about the fact that the underworld, that America is Eden, that not only is America hell, but it's also Eden, and it's also the fairyland. It's also Avalon. And like Avalon means, it comes from the word apple, or the same root word as apple, means like the land of apples. So, that's in line with it being Eden, because what it seems to be is that, well, potentially that the fruit of the tree of knowledge may have been, I mean, it may have just been a metaphor for knowledge in general, but it may also have referred to metallurgy, and particularly like the enunciation, like the the launch of the Chalcolithic, the Copper Age in, I guess like 10,000 years ago, or 8,000 years ago, or something like that. And at least some of the oldest copper mines on Earth are in America, specifically in the Great Lakes, and specifically in Ile Royale in Lake Superior, which I think is in Canada. Yeah, but it's like on the Canadian side of Lake Superior, I guess, or I'm not sure if, I think there's a US side of it too, but I think that the mines there are like 8,000 years old or so. And so, it's possible that they're actually the first that, that the Chalcolithic age began in America. Maybe, and like, because there's a lot of reason to believe that the metaphor of copper nuggets and boulders from the Great Lakes mines were referred to as fruit, as apples, as grapes, as dates, as, you know, all different kinds of fruit metaphors, maybe pomegranates. But, you know, like in a lot of European traditions, it was referred to as the golden apple, the golden apples of Hesperides. Hesperides being America, meaning same basic terminology as the Egyptian name for America, Amentet, which means the West. Hesperides is Greek for the West. So in the Hesperides Island, you know, there's the golden apples that grow on the tree there. And so, yeah, I think there could be some actual historical basis to it. You know, like, I mean, a lot of that is just symbolic. A lot of religious stories are symbolic, so they're based on something entirely real, but they're using metaphors, so you can't take it literally. But some parts of it are literal, you know, like, so it's hard to know in this case. There may actually be a literal, you know, history of a kind of Garden of Eden, either during the early Neolithic or even before, in America, in like the Andes or something. I know that the Andes had, the Neolithic seemed to reach the Andes by at least 8,000 years ago, but possibly earlier, because potatoes are thought to have been developed like 8,000 years ago or earlier. So, but, you know, and then there's in South America, basically, like, according to this cosmology where, at least in Dante, like Dante places the top of the world, quote unquote, at Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is kind of like the mountain atop the world, and then, like, you know, exactly opposite it on the, you know, antipodally, like on the exact opposite side of the planet, is the underworld mountain that, you know, like points the opposite way. That's why they're shown as being like two pyramids, like an upward pointing pyramid and then a downward pointing pyramid underneath it. But it's really, I mean, they knew that the planet was round, but it's just for geometric purposes that they rendered it as a pyramid divided into the, you know, different levels. But it's interesting how, like, he talks about, like, Dante wrote like another thing besides his Divine Comedy about the Inferno and everything. He wrote something else that talks about cosmology as well, like what is it called? The shit. Well, anyway, he wrote like something else about different, you know, theories of cosmology, and he basically acted as though that there were antipodes, inhabited antipodes, like, and he referred to, you know, like, he was speaking scientifically in theory, but he said he referred to like a theoretical top of the world, you know, point being the city of Mary, a city called Mary. And then exactly antipodal to that, like on the exact opposite side of the planet, a city, you know, with opposite gravity and everything called Lucy. And he said, you know, the people who live in Lucy have the soles of their feet pointed, you know, the people in these two cities, the soles of their feet are pointed at each other. And so that seems like it's another way to explain the same thing as in his Divine Comedy, because in the Divine Comedy, you know, he juxtaposes the Mount Purgatorio, which is the mountain of the underworld, like kind of the top, like the bottom of the underworld, the deepest circle of hell from the or from, you know, from Europe's perspective, but from the perspective of the underworld, it's the highest level because it's inverted, you know, orientation. So, but yeah, he said that that Mount Purgatorio is also the site of Eden, the Garden of Eden, and that when in the Bible it says that, you know, humans were kicked out of Eden for discovering the fruit of knowledge, and then they were forced to like work the land and stuff, and they were barred by the archangel Michael or Gabriel or somebody, I don't know, who like bars the way blocks their return to Eden with a big like fiery sword. So that this was interpreted as the heat of the equatorial regions were seen as like were metaphorically described as like a barrier of fire that kept people from venturing between the northern and southern hemispheres. So like there's actually not anything. Oh, my cat's like wigging out. I have to anyway. So the try to scare away my cat so he doesn't keep like meowing at me endlessly, which he'll do. Anyway, like, so, you know, and it kind of makes sense that that if the Garden of Eden was seen as being, you know, basically in South America, I mean, like, there's nothing really like, because, you know, in the cosmology, Jerusalem is the top of the world, and then the top of the underworld is basically basically South America, you know, like, so probably the mountain, like the Andes. So, and you know, like the tallest mountain in the Western Hemisphere is in the Andes. Just as the highest mountain in the Eastern Hemisphere is in the Himalayas. But, and those are actually almost antipodal to each other. So like if this tradition began in a way that was literal, it had to have started in China, because China's, or somewhere around there, because that's the only place that's actually antipodal to South America. And those are some of the only places that are really antipodal to anything, because most land is antipodal to water, and that goes for Jerusalem as well. Like the actual antipode of Jerusalem is just like the South Pacific, like kind of like due south from Alaska, and like east of or west of Easter Island, and basically closer to, like, the closest continent is actually probably Asia, or at least like Australia or something. But this same tradition, it was just used wherever you were, as long as you were in the Northeast Hemisphere, at least for this type of thing. Like, there were other things that were more literal, I think, where they would actually find the real antipode. But for the general, like, rituals and traditions and symbolisms, like, every place was treated as if South America was its ultimate antipode, even though that's only actually true of China, and probably parts of Mongolia and Siberia, and maybe some parts of Central Asia or whatever. So, but yeah, every place in the world that's in the Northeast Hemisphere, I think they still treated it that same way. Like, if they were, like, in Egypt, like, they would treat it like their pyramid. They would build a pyramid at Giza or at Saqqara or Dashur or something, and then that pyramid was seen as being the top of the world, and then it was treated as if the bottom of the world, like the ultimate antipode, was South America, was the southernmost part of the Americas, which again is not true. It's only true for China and some surrounding countries. So yeah, that raises the possibility that this tradition started in China. That might explain why, I don't know. I mean, that might explain why the underworld maps seem to be written, like the Egyptian underworld maps seem to be written, seem to be constructed with an assumption of eastward. I mean, I could be wrong, but it kind of seems like it's assuming that, or it might be assuming that the person is arriving from Siberia and crossing to Alaska, because it seems like that might be considered like the first gateway in a way. But it's kind of hard to be clear, perfectly sure about that. But especially the way the underworld gatekeepers, the Hellgate, the Hellgrind gods, that you have to say, sing. You have to sing specific spells to each one, but they're all places that block marine navigation, but only from a certain direction. So all the ones on the West Coast block navigation from the north to the south, and then it's the reverse on the, or what did I say? That's on the West Coast. So on the West Coast, it's all the gatekeepers are the places that block